Thank you for coming to tonight's Neighborhood Advisory Committee meeting. Welcome and thank you for your participation tonight. We are recording this, we told you before, and as we have UVU here tonight to kind of give us an update and presentation. We did receive a few questions, which talking to UVU, we'll address those directly with that resident, but we'll include those. Some of those I think will be addressed with the presentation as well. So not to take too much time tonight, kind of the format for tonight is where we will have UVU give us a presentation, and then we've got a microphone after that. We'll open it up to just question and answer for them. And in the being mindful of the season that is before us and we're in right now, we won't do any kind of breakouts after the fact, and we'll kind of reconvene in January at our next meeting, and we'll do some review of some goals at that point. So we'll turn the time over to UVU and thank them for being here.
Thanks, Grant. For those of you that I have not met or don't know, my name is Steve Anderson. I'm the Director of Community and Government Relations at UVU. And with me, I have Stephen White, Associate Vice President of University Relations, and Cameron Martin, Vice President of University Relations at UVU. So all of the easy questions you can ask me, all of the hard questions you can ask those guys. So, and we'll just dance around until somebody answers it. So first off, thank you for being here. This is a great process that you've been engaging in over the past few months. I have attended a couple of the meetings and have enjoyed being a part of that. So thank you. Thank you for engaging in this process, and hopefully we can go through some of the things that we're doing on campus and answer some of your questions and then move from there. And then also just wanted to wish everyone happy holidays. I know that your numbers are usually a little bit bigger than this, but with Christmas being next week, a lot of people are probably traveling and off doing other fun things. And not that this isn't fun, because I think this is a lot of fun. So, anyway,
Depends on your point.
Let's sucker for punishment. So I've got, 30 slides. I'll go through them as quickly or as slowly as you'd like me to go through them. Please stop, ask questions during so that we can just focus on whatever slide we're on rather than saving your questions till the end, just so that when it's right there on the tip of your tongue, we can ask it, we can talk about it, we can dive into it. So the first half of the slideshow is just an update about what's happening on campus with various buildings and homes that we own and things like that. And then the second part of the presentation is UVU's Vision 2030 plan that we've developed. That is a 10-year strategic plan that takes us to the year 2030. So, like I said, just raise your hand and we'll get into it if you have questions. Am I speaking loud enough? Can everybody hear good? Yeah? Okay, great. Oh yeah, I'm gonna turn this thing on. Okay, so first off is our new Keller business building. You may have heard that we received funding from the legislature as well as some private donations to build this building. It's located on the south side of campus, just right there next to that main roundabout right off of University Parkway. This building they'll start moving dirt here in the next month or two, so you'll start to see some construction fences and other things that are popping up around. The building is going, if you can orient yourself, the marquee sign is there on the left. So to the right there is a visitor parking lot currently, which will be turned into this business building. And then we're also doing a facelift to our administration building. So you'll see a little bit of a change to the front of campus there on the left side of that building. So it's a 2-year build. It'll be finished hopefully in the spring of 2022, open for classes then. But if you're interested in updates about the construction or process throughout the next 2 years, feel free to either call or email me, or there's a website here that's uvu.edu/woodbury/Keller-building. Yes, sir?
Is that going to replace
Great question. So it's a new building. The current Woodbury School of Business building will be repurposed for other classrooms and office spaces, but the entire School of Business will move into this building. So we're keeping the old building. It'll be repurposed for staff offices and classrooms and other things. So it'll be just behind that building. Yes, sir.
So is this just north of the main roundabout off the diagonal?
Yep, it's just north and east off the roundabout. So if you were to come off of University Parkway into the roundabout, it's the second exit. So instead of turning right, you go basically straight ahead, which you would go into a parking lot right now, and then turn right. And there's a visitor parking lot with about 75 stalls that'll go away.
So for orientation, on the picture on the right, there's a street that comes right down there to the front, touches that building, and that's where the UVX bus stop currently is and will stay. Right now, the students get off and they have to walk, quite a ways to get inside. This will then allow them to get out of the element road within 20 feet of that bus stop. So if you know where that bus stop is, then you know the building's coming out that far. Does that help?
How do you plan on handling the traffic and the parking for this building?
So that's a great question. So there is parking just to the east of that. And then also what Cameron mentioned, we have the UVX and the bus stop right there that, we've seen a decrease in the number of student parking passes that we've sold, and we've seen a significant increase in the ridership of UVX. So we're hoping that trend continues. But for the majority of our parking, though, we've got parking on the north side of campus, and then we have our free parking lot on the west side of I-15 over by our health professions building where they can take UVX around.
This is taking out visitor parking, not staff or faculty parking. And so right now, we have basically two sections for visitor parking, the parking structure and these stalls. We would then take the same number of stalls and disperse them around campus closer to each building, allowing it easier for visitors to access a particular building. That's of existing parking stall inventory, which then pushes then a little bit out a row, faculty, staff, and the students. But as Steve just said, with the UVX impact, which has been very positive, then we feel that we can absorb that.
That roundabout, that thing is the most congested part of campus. How are you going to handle that?
It will stay as a roundabout, as a two-lane.
Same size?
Same size.
Perfect. Ridiculous.
Did you have a question over here?
I was just asking how, when you talk about how convenient to the bus station and students inside, will it physically tie into the rest of the campus such that it's a indoor walk?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be connected to.
So that bottom floor, all that glass along that bottom floor is actually the hallway. So the students get into the building and they walk down that hallway and it connects into the existing infrastructure.
Okay.
So it's all part of it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going to maintain the connectivity that we've had with our other businesses.
Yes, sir.
So did you say one of these parking lots is absolutely free?
We have a free parking lot for our students. They still need to get a permit, but it's located on the west side of I-15 next to our health professions building, right there next to the front runner station, so they can hop on UVX and come around. Or about a year from now, we'll have the completion of the UVU pedestrian bridge, so they could just walk across into campus.
Or park on the neighborhood streets?
Well, we hope not. Are they doing that now? Yeah. So we've actually been working with the city. We recently formed a town gown advisory committee. So it's Orem Police and UVU Police. It's myself. It's the deputy city manager and the housing folks from both the city and from UVU. And we've been meeting. We've actually talked about that. And so we're working through that. So we're hoping to have a better solution for you here in the near future coming from that committee.
I think it was at the last one of these meetings where they indicated that there was going to be an additional 180 parking spaces for students for the balance of new enrollment.
I haven't heard that statistic.
I haven't heard that.
Grant?
I don't,
Did they say that at the last meeting?
I have to go back and check.
It wasn't the last meeting before, and they did say
Okay.
that they're trying to encourage students to take the EPX, and I yes, I'll try to understand how they
Sure.
impacted it.
Well, for some UBX works, but for a lot of people it doesn't.
True.
So the neighborhood streets are the next best students think solution.
There's so the city is also required with that development of the green on campus drive, which you'll give a brief update, high level of parking ratio. So that will also be, and that's a parking structure that's being constructed currently. One will be done. Phase one is supposed to be livable this coming August. And I think there's 2 or 3 phases. I'm not sure. So it's within the year and a half that does.
We don't want to see it.
Okay.
Where is it again?
There, as part of, it's not UVU owned property, but as part of the Green on Campus Drive, the student housing development that's being built,
Okay.
which is immediately east of the new Norda Performing Arts Center. There's a multiple level, I don't know how many stall, parking structure that's being constructed, as well as surface parking, that will also help get students where they don't have to drive to class, they walk to class.
Cameron, is it safe to say though that the problem with students parking in neighborhoods is they just don't want to buy a permit? You have plenty of parking right now on
Sure.
campus.
We like, it's more accurately stated, sorry, Steve.
You're good.
We don't have a parking problem, we have a walking problem, right? We have plenty of parking inventory, and as Stephen has said, we have free parking as well. They do have to get a permit, because we want them to know that the car's registered to them, if there's issue, who it is, ownership, emissions, and all that. But there is free options to try and address that from our perspective.
And their transit passes are also free, so they can ride anything in the UTA system, buses, train, UBX, and it's included in their student fees, so.
What's the parking pass cost for that?
For an annual pass, it's $120, and then per semester, I think it's a little bit higher than whatever half of that is. I think it's like $80 a semester.
Greg, we increased it at the same time we made UVX free. And that has helped shift the population to mass transit from parking. It was 95.
So over the year that it'll take you to do the bridge and the construction on Mora and the apartments, what do you do with the construction workers? You're competing once again with, I don't know what your headcount is, them.
Sure.
For parking. Does that push your students back out on the street?
No, so if you go back a slide, that's the parking stall, but in the front of that building there is where there's, call it a horseshoe, visitor zone. That gets blocked off for construction, and that's the staging area. So hopefully construction workers park in that area. So as to focus them on the construction site and not impeding the campus flow.
Okay.
Ken?
Have you done like a campaign on campus, like a parking campaign or something that?
So we did a big UTA campaign when the UVX passes became free for our students. I don't know that we've done specific, we have done specific parking recently.
I've seen it on the signs in the hallways,
Yep.
and say.
Pardon our desks.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
The lots in and L are free right now, they're
Yeah.
open. They're stalled.
Yes, so yes, we have. Yeah, that's a great question. So the pedestrian bridge, like I said, it's about a year build. Chef Steel in Linden, which was formerly Mountain State Steel, has got the bid, so it's being built just right down the street. You'll see some construction on both the east and west side of I-15 right now. They're building the towers, the stairs, and elevators to get to the bridge. And then once the bridge is finished, they'll drive it down on a truck, and then over a couple of nights, they'll move it, they'll crane it into place over the freeway. So you won't see a big interruption in traffic or, traffic from that construction because of the bridge. But that will connect from the south side of the Orem Frontrunner Station over I-15 into our campus. So, yes, ma'am.
Bicycle?
Yep.
Is there a ramp taken by that?
There is a ramp and stairs and an elevator. Yeah.
When's that supposed to be completed?
It's slated to be finished in November of 2020. It was actually supposed to be done this fall, and we ran into some issues with the ground and also the right-of-way over the Union Pacific Railroad tracks. They own all of the air above the railroad tracks, and so we had to work on some of those right-of-way issues with them. And we finally got those resolved, so we were able to send it out to bid, and they've started construction on it. So we actually broke ground on it when President Holland was still here, thinking that those weren't going to be issues, and then we ran into those issues and delayed us about a year. So we've got that under construction though, and they're telling us November of 2020. After school starts. Yep. So you may have also seen recently in the newspaper, the Board of Trustees approved some funding to build a new institutional advancement building. Currently, our institutional advancement building is the UVU Alumni House, which is the old Miller home up on 1200. So this will be located on 800 South. You can see H2 and H3. That's our current Gear Up and Trio buildings. They're homes that we've owned for a long time, right on 800 South. That, just for reference, is just to the west of our new Nelson Autism building. Those two homes will be torn down, and we'll build the new institutional advancement building there. And those two Gear Up and SCEP will be moved to a different location, which I'll show you here in a minute. But yes, sir.
What happens to the another building?
I've got that in here as well. So we're not 100% sure what we're going to use it for, but it'll still be in our Alumni House, and we'll have alumni events and things like that there for now until we figure out if we backfill with something else.
So when all these new buildings come on, UVU is a unique campus. One of the Southwest Orem people did some research and found out that, I guess, year before last, 90% of all the high school graduates went to UVU. Now, you could talk about why that happens, but that's the fact. And it's landlocked, which is unique. And so every time a new building is built or enrollment goes up, it is a catastrophic event in the neighborhood. But there's always funding for buildings, but there's never any funding for the infrastructure of helping the neighbors get all these people in and out. That's just tough luck, guys.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And we've worked with UDOT and with the city of Orem to try and mitigate some of those issues. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that that's an accurate statement completely. The investment into UVX, the investment into other parking structures and things that we've made, and attempts to mitigate traffic from the neighborhood. In fact, even we're not building that apartment complex. Private development is doing it, but we supported that because then if somebody's living there, they're walking to class instead of driving. So a high proportion of the students from Utah County are coming here. That's correct. I don't know if it's 90%, but it's high.
90% from the state, not from Utah County. The state. If you take all
No.
the universities.
No, it's not that high.
Well, if Murray Lowe was here, I'll tell you, I've got a copy of it on YouTube.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to do that. And we've had him discuss things with our institutional advancement or institutional research folks to understand the methodology and the numbers, the actual numbers of what we're doing. But it is true that there is a large portion of the growth within the state is in Utah County, 50%. In fact, of all K-12 growth in the state of Utah, it's 49% technically, is in Utah County. We are a growth sector, if you will, of the state's economy. And as a reflection of that growth, UVU is also growing. And we appreciate that, and we're not purposely trying to annoy and make life miserable for the neighbors. We're actually, that's why we're here and involved, to figure out ways to help continue mitigating the negative impacts, but there is an impact, without a doubt. But we have invested quite a bit in the issue of how to move people to and from campus in a more expeditious way and leverage mass transit and other things so as to do what we can to mitigate the negative impact of the neighborhood.
But I think in balance with the growth on campus, it's minuscule.
That's your perspective. And that's
Well,
I
I think
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
That's the perspective. what percent of EDU students will actually be on satellite campuses by, say, in the next 5 years?
That's a great question, and I think we're going to address some of that.
We don't have a specific percentage on satellite campuses. We're gonna talk about satellite campus, so our headcount right now is just north of 41,000 students. But just over 12,000 of those students are high school students, are concurrent enrollments. They don't actually come to the main Orem campus for the most part. And then we have about 11,500 students that are enrolled in an online course, at least one online course. And we have about 5,300 students that are enrolled in the hybrid class, which is offered part online and part in class. So they're not coming to class, 5 days a week. They're coming to class maybe 2 days a week. And then the rest of their learning is online. So we're working on innovative ways to not only spread students out to satellite campuses, but to move students to more online and hybrid learning options so that they're not accessing campus quite as often as they were in the past. So we are working on reducing that strain on the main campus by offering other solutions. Also, though, we do have a number of satellite campuses, which I'll talk about in a minute, that we're working to build out.
Well, the growth of the university is increasing so fast that whatever you do may slow the rate of growth, but it's still growing.
Sure.
So,
And then that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to manage the growth in an effective way, right? We're not out there necessarily seeking new students. We're not trying to grow. We're answering the call of our community. There's students that need to be educated and they want to come to UVU, and so we're trying to figure out the best way to educate them.
manage growth, you can't enroll.
It's not our call.
That actually compounds the social impact, the negativity to our economy and to the sense of community and quality of our community. If you create a haves and haves not experience. But that's not to say that's others' perspectives, if you cap it, that could,
Well, you've got
but
to
we're not.
control the growth, because it's
Yeah,
not getting
well-
bad now, it's just exploding.
No. There's more information that I think through the Vision 2030 plan that we'll share with you tonight, that you can see the strategy that we're deploying and how to manage that growth effectively.
It's already happening. It's here
The
now.
future, it is here now, and it has been here for a number of years.
And they're ignored.
It hasn't been ignored,
Well, it has been ineffectively addressed. Yeah.
and I appreciate that there are perspectives of that kind. There are also perspectives different from that. Let us share with you the points that we have, and let's see where we go.
Move on. I like that. Okay. So this next slide we're going to talk about. So H4 is our ROTC building. It's a home that's located just on the south side of the Steel property. So that's 800 West. And then H26 is the old Theobald home that we purchased. And it's a proposed reception center and will be used for executive events, but it'll be accessed from Campus Drive. So down where the driveway comes almost all the way to Campus Drive, we're going to complete that and have access from Campus Drive. So it should have a very minimal impact on the neighborhood. There's not going to be anything crazy or other things happening there. We're not going to tear it down and build a big building or anything like that. We're going to keep it the way it is. And
When we send out maps to if there's going to be an event there, it will direct them to access from the campus side. It is not our intent to increase traffic flow into the neighborhood area. That would be negative for you and negative for us. But this unique property also affords us, the long-term plan is UBX also comes through there, and that road needs to be widened around that curve. We have on that property, we're able to adjust that without negatively impacting the neighborhood. But there is also, other possibility of uses out there, but right now this is what is being proposed, mainly on executive events, things that would be of a small scale nature. Conference, we have need for a lot more conference rooms across campus.
yes, ma'am.
So you're saying that you're not gonna have any access on 925 South from the Theobald home, or?
There will be access there because there's a street there, right,
Right.
a driveway, but we will drive in all of our access to that property from our side. We don't want to impose or change, if you will, the chemistry of the neighborhood. That's not our intent.
How about noise pollution and things like that for the neighbors?
If
Is
you
there
have-
going to be anything?
As if with any current infrastructure or building or noise issue, we welcome you to let us know. There have been times where, for example, when a building was being built, it was a library, the backing up of the trucks were beep beep, and the Steele family said, hey, that's horrible. Then we, thank you, gave that feedback to the contractor. They went to a flag system instead of a beeping system. So we want to be responsive. If this property generates issue, please let us know.
What are the other possibilities for that property that you mentioned?
Right now, we're looking at somewhat of a reception center. And when you say reception center, you're probably thinking a lot of weddings. No, it's a reception center, campus events, dignitaries on campus. We've had some folks from India and other countries come to campus, and this gives us another place. There are times when the student Sorensen Center is just completely maxed out, and we have no ability. This will afford us that ability for something standalone.
So you're thinking during the business day, not in the evenings?
I'm guessing on this. The majority of the use would definitely be during the business days, but I'm not going to say there will never be something in the evening. Because again, that use still has to really be defined. But we wanted you to know what the current intent is.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's move up to 400 West. So H5 is our current extended education building. We are in the process of purchasing a building up at Thanksgiving Point. And once that purchase goes through, extended education is actually moving up to Thanksgiving Point. So that house will be returned to the university, and we're still not 100% sure what we're going to use that for. But then the other three houses are the Miller Hatch and Washburn residences that we purchased a few years ago. And so we talked about Gear Up and Trio, which were the two homes on 800 South that are going to be torn down for the institutional advancement building. They're moving up to two of those homes. And then the Miller's home will be used for staff office space. And then we have a temporary lease with Redstone Property Management. It's the leasing office for the Green on Campus Drive. So until their leasing office is open, they're leasing part of that home temporarily until their leasing office is open. So that's the update on those. Any questions on those? Okay, great. Then if you move a little bit farther south, we have a few of those homes. They're for academic purposes right now. H7 used to be our ROTC, and we moved that down over to the Steele property. So you can see that those are for academic purposes. All right, so this is our Alumni House and the three homes that we own there on 1200 South, 490 West. So H12 is currently used for facilities. It's where our fire chief is. H14 and H15 are used for alumni and events. And then H18 is the Silva home. They're going to live there for another year, but we've purchased that home. And then we've been in conversations with the neighbors that own those other houses about, being open if they ever. We're not actively seeking after those homes, but we have identified that on our facilities master plan for future growth of the university. And then you can see the Alumni House and our development center there. So this is a picture of the former institutional residence where President Holland lived. Our Masters of our Marriage and Family Therapy program is going to be moving in there in 2020. And then potentially our Center for National Security Studies will move in there. So we'll have some staff office spaces and then some conference rooms and some counseling space for the Marriage and Family Therapy. So that's the institutional residence there on Campus Drive. And you can see 925 South right behind that. Any questions on that?
What's the plans for that future grass area across from the old Cousins residence?
I'm glad you asked that.
Well, which way? Sir? South?
South?
Are you saying south or?
Just right down below it? Yeah. Yeah, where the airplane is. So you may have also seen recently in the news that we've begun fundraising for a new College of Engineering and Technology building. We've estimated that it's an $88 million building, so we've got some work to do on private fundraising before we can go to the state legislature to ask for the remainder of the funding. So we're actively working on fundraising for that building right now. We recently added 3 new engineering programs. The state every year tells us we have 800 engineering jobs open on the campus. There just aren't enough engineering graduates, so we're working to fill that need, and this building will help us to fill that need. It'll be classrooms and labs and practical workspace for these future engineers as they get their degree. So that will be in that grass field across from the old institutional residence that you were asking about.
So there's 3 large buildings being put on this landlocked, overcrowded Orem campus. What's going on in the satellite campus?
It's a great question. So, go ahead. I don't have specifics about what are going on with satellite campuses, but you can see that we've got a number of satellite campuses. In Vineyard, we have 225 acres currently, working on purchasing another 60 acres over there. We have some athletic functions, intramural functions. Our rodeo team has a practice facility out there. And we've got in our master plan, our long-range master plan, to move a business innovation center out there, potentially a conference center, and then a number of academic buildings. So we have that in our plan to move that there. Yeah, Craig.
Is there any plans when they're going to put in the station at the top?
So it's under construction now. They've started moving dirt. They're hoping that it'll be open by next fall. So we met with the city 2 weeks ago.
That would really help that area.
That'll help that area a lot. So, Vineyard. So it's 800, if you go 800 north and you go west of Geneva, it'll be almost to where the road ends on the north side of the road. There's a
bridge that goes up.
There's a bridge that goes over the train tracks.
You know where the bubble currently is? It would be north.
Just north of that.
It's just,
Yeah.
west of that.
It'll be another stop in front of that. Yeah.
And that's the strategy of moving.
And Vineyard City has a big master planned city center there just to the west of that front runner station. And then our campus is just on the east side of that front runner station. That's Vineyard City. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
What percentage of students you think the satellite campuses are going to be able to absorb?
That's a good question. We're not 100% sure yet. And the build out of these satellite campuses could take some time, right? They're on our 50-year master plan.
But let's just take Lehigh, for example. I'll go north to south. The Lehigh campus, we currently lease a floor or space in the building, which used to be Zango, then it was Entrada, then Entrada built a new one, so we have that building. We're under contract to purchase that building. We also have 10 acres, and just south of that is where the Lehigh front runner stop is. And we have 10 acres just on the south side of that. So it creates a nice little hub for that. On that footprint, you would have our distance education moving out there. You're also looking to have other elements of the College of Engineering Technology on the megatronics and an MBA, things that service Silicon Slopes, so that people, where they work, they can slide out, take class, go back to work, that services that region, so that we're not driving traffic to the main campus. We're trying to increase high volume destination programs at each of these satellite campuses. Then coming south, you have the Vineyard, which Steve just talked about. It will also have an athletic, academic space for student athletes. Right now, they're in those great trailers, which if you have, you know where the testing center is right there. If you want to have an effervescent experience, go and it's kind of an interesting experience because you have wrestling and everything else. It's a hodgepodge. They really underserved. We've moved that out there as well. In Provo, you have the airport, and we have a facility out there. So I don't know what percent of our emergency services program are served by there. This is a question that has been asked, and we're trying to do our best guess and understand what that would be by servicing. But you have to also know what the programs are at these sites, and then that will help us answer your question. can't answer it tonight, but we are attuned to that question. We get asked it a lot. Heber, we already have, that's up there, that's out of this valley. We also have one down in Capitol Reef, and in fact, you should go out there and check out Capitol Reef. It's stunning.
Total enrollment is essentially zero for those campuses.
No, Payson
As
is
a percentage.
lower right now, you are correct. Payson, also, I didn't finish that one, is 30 acres under escrow. We're waiting for UDOT, we have been waiting for UDOT to finalize the coordinates of a new expanded off interchange. And then that's where that site goes. And we look to build something collaboratively with Eagle School District and MTech on that footprint to service, again, the needs of that economy and that community. So as of right now, the percent, to your point, on these various campuses is lower. Provo has a pretty good population of students through its emergency services. Lehigh is, and aviation, yes. Lehigh is growing, and Heber, it's really about around 500 students, so it's a lower population as well. Vineyard will become something very significant in the future.
So what would you guess the total student population at these satellite campuses is right now?
That's a great question in a meeting. If I say a particular percentage point without really knowing the data, it's nothing more than lifting my finger and putting it to the wind.
Well,
It would trip you up and would trip me up.
How
So
about in raw numbers? You just said, what, 500 Heber?
about 500 Heber, yes. But I don't know the total number of population at Provo. The only reason I know the Heber is because I have recently seen that. So
I think
let's
it's
come back to
a great plan to have the engineering people near Silicon Slopes, but you're building a brand new engineering building right now when you have the opportunity to do something that would be closer to Silicon Slopes.
Different kinds of engineers though, right?
Yeah, different elements and aspects. of
Civil engineers, software engineers.
Mechanical
Mechanical
engineers.
engineers, there's some various elements of engineering. It's a fairly large construct. So you'll have programs that feed Silicon Slopes directly up there.
Yes, sir.
I just have one comment on that, because I did turn around and graduate out of UVU in the building inspection technology part. And you have a lot of degrees, like the one down at the Provo for the emergency services. There are a lot of degrees that you will use part of one satellite area and then go back to the main hub of the college. It's not like your degrees are all at the satellites. You will have so many classes at the certain places, but then other classes will still be held. So the students are still.
They're still bouncing back and forth, yeah.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
particularly in the undergrad experience, when you went through your generals, and instead of having them ping pong, you have Math 1010 at one campus, and you have to have English 1050 at a completely another satellite place. It doesn't make sense, and then you're increasing traffic. So on the undergrad experience, you're correct. But when you get into the programmatic element, we are maturing, and in that particular instance, that's college actually spread out over like 9 different locations, and we're trying to cluster them to resolve some of that. But at the same time, when they're going through the generals, they'll ping pong, but on the main campus. But then when they get into the specific program, that's when you.
We have a handful.
So you're meaning more than undergraduate and graduate, you're meaning lower division and upper division?
Correct.
Okay. So
And there are a handful of degrees that you can get completely at the Heber campus, and then we have 29 full degrees that you can get online. Yeah.
And we have to grow the online. That's the only way you scale it. And so that also makes it hard for us to tell you what percent is beyond this footprint or not. What we're aggressively growing after is the online domain. That's part of the 2030 plan that Steve will talk about. You have to have that flexibility. We have 80% of our students are working, and they have to have that flexibility so they can continue to work. And then there are some who are more seasoned in their life experiences and the importance of an on-campus cohorted experience. They've had that. They just need to get to the degree for completion and for their employability. So online is a huge frontier that will allow us also to scope and scale to meet a lot of this demand.
Great. So this brings us to the conclusion of our facilities update, what's happening on campus. The next portion is going to be our Vision 2030. Both Cameron and Stephen have family commitments that they need to leave. So we're going to excuse them whenever they need to go. and thank them for being here. So if you have any last questions, hard questions that you want to ask Cam,
I got about 20 minutes.
please
It's a
ask
can
them.
oversight, I can't miss.
I may have missed it. What
Sure.
about Melanie Bastions?
Oh, yeah, we didn't put that in here. Sorry about that.
So, because we didn't talk
That's
about
oversight.
that.
That's
Yeah.
an oversight on our part.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can give you a brief update. So, Lake Mount Manor is what we're calling it. It's going to be an art museum, and it'll also be used for various art shows and other things that will be used primarily by our School of the Arts. And we've also made a commitment to the neighbors that we are going to continue to do things like the Christmas lights, and
Yeah.
Melanie used to do full-size candy bars on Halloween and things like that.
Melanie would be really mad at you guys
Yeah.
right now, because there is no Christmas lights up.
I know.
Right, when, at the announcement, we said, please give us a year, that's
Yeah.
this year.
Okay.
So we're remodeling. We're doing some remodeling right now. We have to bring it up to commercial code. We need to do some, fire sprinklers and some other things to make it so that it could be used as more of a commercial building rather than a residence. So yes, we do have that commitment, and
That's an oversight.
we got a little bit of a buffer from Melanie's family so that we could get some of that remodeling done before.
I've had a lot of grandkids asking me, where's the Christmas lights?
Yeah, I know, they're fantastic Christmas lights too. Yes, thank you for that question. I appreciate that. So, yes.
Where is this place?
Oh, it's south of Walmart. So if you take Sand Hill Road south about, I don't know, half a
1800
mile.
south- 1800 south and probably 200 west.
It's a,
And then you turn up east, and you would see it on the left-hand side,
it's about a 30,000 square foot home with maybe 10 acres of land around
Jazz
it.
court, basketball court in the basement.
Yeah, from the NBA.
Yeah, it's a big home. Yeah, big home. Melanie's sons donated it to the university when she passed away. So
And it was her wish to have it called Lake Mount Manor, because you see the mountain and the lake, so that's what.
beautiful home. So look for it in about a year from now. It'll be open. We'll have an open house. You'll all be invited. There will be some community events there throughout the year, and some art shows and other things like that. Yes, ma'am.
So, the east of the outer walls, is that parking there, that part of it, or where are you going to see the place?
No, there's a dirt property that the boys still own. But west of that is some grass area that we are turning into parking. So should have all parking on property. But we also have to make it large enough so school buses with kids, coming in for a 5th grade art show or something come through during the day, that they can do that. So
Now you opened up a can of worms.
So does that mean the tennis courts are gonna be turned into a parking lot?
They're, from what I understand, they're staying.
Yeah.
I don't know
Who's
why.
gonna play tennis on that?
For UV's new tennis team.
Or neighborhood,
Just kidding. We're not getting a tennis team. So. Any other facilities questions before we move into our Vision 2030 plan? Great. So we, as a university with new administration, President Tamina's coming in, really have thought, we continually plan, and we have engaged in this Vision 2030 plan that will help us plan out for the next 10 years to the year 2030. And so we're going to go over some of those just key points of that Vision 2030 plan. I have copies of it, the full plan, if you would like. But I'll give you the Reader's Digest version here so that we can get out of here before 10 o'clock.
no. The reason this is important because this is what drives the infrastructure.
Yeah. So this is basically our academic master plan that drives the facilities master plan. So when President Tamina's came on, we refreshed our mission statement. Utah Valley University is an integrated university and community college. Didn't change. That educates every student for success in work and life through excellence in engaged teaching services and scholarship. So we have some action commitments and values, exceptional care, exceptional accountability, and exceptional results. These are our focuses as we work for the next 10 years to build for our students. So a little bit of background. USHE, which is the Utah System of Higher Education, has 3 dual mission institutions: Utah Valley University, Weber State University, and Dixie State. What that means is that we are a community college and a university integrated into one. We have the functions of both, but we're not separate or siloed. So that a student can start and get a certificate or an associate's degree, and they can matriculate to a bachelor's and move on to a master's degree from there. So like Cameron mentioned earlier, well, I actually didn't mention this, the 3 of those universities, we educate nearly 50% of all Utahns enrolled in the Utah system of higher education. So we're the workhorse institutions in Utah. What? Yep. So you can read all the rest of that stuff, but yes,
Are the other 2 dual purpose also open enrollment?
they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a key ingredient to be really dual.
Yeah, that community college function of that integrated mission is crucial, like we talked about earlier with capping enrollment and having it so that there's, some that can and can't come. It just doesn't really make sense to educate the growing need of Utah. So yes, all 3 are open mission. Thank you for the question. Weber State and Dixie State. So St. George and Ogden.
Dual mission, because there's that, the next slide will show that.
Yeah.
What it is.
Great.
Is there any effort to recruit international students? Because I've seen some there, and some of them are saying, there's an effort to go out and bring in the international community. I was wondering, is that true, and so what percentage, and is that affects us as well?
Sure.
That makes the campus growing more.
Yeah. We don't employ a full-time international recruiter. We did at one point, but that was years ago. So we're not actually going out and going to recruiting events in wherever, England, Saudi Arabia, whatever. But we welcome international students. They bring a perspective to our student body that really makes, learning unique. You want to have some diversity in your learning experience, and those students definitely help.
Well, we have international programs. We have students who go and do service learning projects in South America, study abroad in Italy or other places. And as those students engage with other students in other institutions, that naturally is also a way that does put the UU on their radar as a possibility, a place to come. And we live in a global economy. And so having that, it's a very small percent of our total student population. It is truly very small. It's in the single digit type of percentage points. But it's important because we live in a global community. So.
I think we live in a unique state. People want to come to Utah for a number of different reasons, right? So we talked a little bit about the integrated dual mission. You can see it encompasses a community college and a full-fledged teaching university into one integrated model. So you have one administration. It makes it easier for students to move from that certificate through the associate, through the bachelor's, and even on to the master's program without having to transfer to another institution and learn new ways, new swim lanes, things like that. So it's a great model for students that could come and get a certificate and then go get a job and work and then come back and matriculate into a bachelor's program or something like that. So it's a really a neat model that the rest of the country is looking towards. Wisconsin is actually combining their community colleges and their universities. Georgia's looking at doing it. Florida's looking at doing it because it just makes more sense from a budgetary standpoint as well as from a student experience standpoint. Because the national trend is showing that only about 27% of students that attend community college go to a four-year institution afterwards and get a bachelor's degree. So states and institutions are looking for innovative ways to keep and retain those students, and they're looking at that dual mission model, which we've held the last 2 years, an international conference. The first year was at UVU. This year was in September, October. It was at Weber State. Next year it'll be at Dixie, and then it'll be back at UVU the following year, where we talk about the dual mission and how it works and how other states can implement some of those things into their education.
So with the need for trade,
Yeah.
are you guys planning on doing anything to build that up again or anything like that?
Oh, ouch, build it up again.
Well, I mean,
because
I know
we've
it's
never
still
abandoned it.
there.
Never abandoned it. We
Right.
have to really double down on the messaging on that.
Uh-huh.
That's, one of the issues.
Largest class we've ever had in mechatronics
Yeah.
Yeah.
this semester,
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
because, and 2 international students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just awesome
Yeah.
that joined our class.
And
I
for
don't
the,
mean beef it up, I mean more of an emphasis.
Sure.
You have to
And
really hear
if you
about
talk
it.
to anybody in the industry, everybody in the industry agrees. Biggest problem, high school counselors.
yeah.
If a high school counselor says a 4-year degree is the only way you can be successful, that's what they're gonna go try to do, some people aren't cut out for that. And high school counselors need to be able to understand that there are some people who just learn better if they build things.
And for those,
Sorry.
No, that's great.
That's great. Don't stop now. We're doubling down on messaging on that. We don't want people to just say that we're also then abandoning the work. No, it's interesting, if they don't see themselves or hear themselves, are you abandoning it? No, we are strategically going after, as part of this plan, messaging the importance and the opportunity that we have on that community college, the associate, that undergraduate experience on the certificate and associate's level. Because you can get a Megatronics, go be hired by Micron, and their starting wages at 60 to 70,000, 2-year degree.
And then they're gonna pay for their schooling to go get that bachelor's degree.
If you want to go back.
If you're good and they want you to.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, my wife facilitates concurrent enrollment and all that for UVU, for both school districts. And
great.
she is swamped
Yeah.
with kids. I'm so glad to hear that, because in both school districts, they're rocking it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
Kids are graduating from high school with an associate's degree.
Which is fantastic, and then they can complement it quickly with the skill set to meet.
Yeah.
And the psyche of the student is changing. When I went to college, it was, I go to college and then I go to get a job. The students now want to start working. And then as they start working, oh, now I need to level up on my education to get to the next opportunity. So this is part of that plan, is how do we stack them, how do we level and allow that flexibility of the work, of that changing dynamic in the workforce.
Well, the great thing about concurrent enrollment too is these high school students can take college level classes for $5 a credit hour. So if you can graduate from high school with an associate's degree, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, that sounds pretty awesome. But to your point, Kenna, also, for some of the things that we can't do at UVU in the trades, we have articulation agreements with MTech. So that students that are at MTech that get a certificate from MTech and that are working, if they want to level up and they want to come get an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree or whatever, that certificate they got will actually count towards what they're coming into with those articulation agreements. So if they want to get a certificate and work and then come to UVU, that's great. Those articulation agreements are something that we've partnered with MTech a lot on, and we've seen a lot of just significant things with that. So I'm not going to go through all these. We're getting short on time. These are some of our student demographics. Y'all are aware of it. 36% are first gen, so they're the first person in their family to go to college. We've got a large number of part-time students. We've got a more non-traditional model with 32% that are older than 25, married, supporting kids, working, all that. So let's get into some of the strategies and initiatives of this 2030 plan. So the first strategy is to enhance student success and accelerate completion of meaningful credentials. So a lot of times we get hit on our completion, our graduation rates. So this plan is specifically aimed at increasing our completion, graduation, retention rates. And since implementing some of these, retention and completion things, we've seen an 11% increase in our completion rate, graduation rate, and our goal is to have 45% by 2025. So this plan is specifically aimed at getting to that goal. So our goal is to get students completed and get them on to working.
And completed at the level that they have that interest in.
Right.
It's not to just push them on, but to be allowing them to do.
Presently, what's the dropout percentage of freshmen who start?
That's tough to say when you say drop out, that's different.
I
That means
mean,
they never, ever come back. But we have a lot who leave for military or church service or things of that nature. So,
Those who do not complete their degrees.
well, our current completion rate is 33%. 33%. But that's completion at UVU. If somebody goes to UVU and then transfers to the U and then completes, that's a completion, but that doesn't get credited to us. So it's a very complex thing, but what we're trying to shoot for is those who come to UVU, get them across our UVU finish line 45% by the year 2025 to improve that. But there's always love bug bites, and they go up to Utah State, or they come down to us, you know.
They go on a mission and they meet somebody they want to go live with up in Logan, so they transfer up to Utah State and finish up there. Yeah.
What percentage of your students are students who use you as a feeder to get general studies knocked off and then move on to Logan or somewhere else?
Historically, it's a higher number, but also at the point of entry, they may have that mindset. But I think going back now, like 12 years, every student body president had that mindset when he or she was coming to campus, and then once they got to campus, loved it and stayed. So it's tough to say what their intent is, tough to measure, but we do know that the greater growth is in the upper class programs, or the baccalaureate programs, because they're staying to complete out. And partially it's because they can be here among family and live at home and cut their costs.
Great, thank you. So we talked about earlier, we're working to increase our stackability with, coming for a certificate and moving on through an associate's or a bachelor's or whatever it may be. So we're redesigning the curriculum so that students know that they can have those stacked credentials. Strategy number 2, improve accessibility, flexibility, and affordability for all current and future UVU students. So we talked about some satellite campuses, building out that coordinated multi-campus plan, expanding our online offerings. That's a big focus for us right now. We're in the process of hiring a new vice president for digital transformation, and one of the big focuses will be on building out that online experience for our students. So we are working towards that, and that's in our plans. It's part of our goal. It's there, and we're committed to that. So we talked a little bit about building out that coordinated multi-campus plan. You can see, it's kind of hard to see on these little screens, but Cameron talked about Lehigh and Vineyard and Provo and Payson and Wasatch. We also have a building at the Canyon Park office park up on 1600 North in Orem. Our culinary arts program is there. And we've been approached about some land in Saratoga Springs or Eagle Mountain. The big issue with that is mass transit. There really isn't any mass transit solutions to get our students there and back. So we're kind of in a holding pattern there. So you can see that it's all along that, for the majority of it, it's on that front runner spine. We want to be able to leverage that mass transit to reduce traffic and parking issues that have been issues in the past. So number 3, we're going to strengthen partnerships for community, workforce, and economic development. So we talked about the partnership with MTech. We also have a partnership with the school districts. We meet with them regularly. Sounds like we need to work with high school counselors a little bit better. We have a conference on campus every year with high school counselors, and so I'm going to suggest that we focus a little bit more on that.
It's also on mom and dad.
Yeah.
You have to have a 4-year degree. Be relevant, have a relevant skill for the economy that we're in going towards.
Yeah, that's right. It's a cool program. So we have a K-16 Alliance. We meet with high school counselors. We meet with superintendents. We're working to strengthen that concurrent enrollment that your wife, heaven bless her, for coordinating that for Provo School District. And then increasing that stackability of those pathways for our students, and then also with that articulation from MTech. So we're trying to improve partnerships with the community to meet workforce needs. So we're looking to industry and to the community to find what are the programs that are needed not only for today, but for the jobs of the future that we may not know about yet, so that we can be prepared for that. So we work constantly with industry leaders and organizations that help us to be ready for what's coming in the future. So in conclusion, summary, our strategic alignment, you can see that our first strategy aligns perfectly with helping our students achieve. Our second strategy helps us to include students wherever they come from, whoever they may be. And our third strategy is to engage and to strengthen those partnerships with the community and with workforce so that our students can be the best prepared that they can be for their future, their work. And so that is our presentation, and thank you.